So why so much increase now? I mean, I know you said money, but why,
Well,
why push it so much if we're running out of the crude?
Well, I think actually the reason why there's so much interest in what we have in Canada is just that. We're running out of the stuff that bubbles to the surface, right? Like it's not, the days where you could drill a hole and oil would come spurting out of the ground are long gone. And what we're left with is deep underground, very hard to access, and Canada's got one of the last big reserves of it. And as we run out of it, the price is going through the roof. It's actually dropped in the last week or so, but I mean, it's only been economically viable to extract oil from the bitumen in Alberta, when it was about $50 a barrel, which really, we got there because of limited supply. The demand was drastically outstripping the supply. Now oil's hovering around $100 a barrel. It goes up and down, but it only really became profitable at that price point. And it was, in the early 2000s, like 2001 to 2003, that we really started seeing, drastic increases in what was being extracted from Alberta. So as we haven't really kicked our fossil fuel addiction, the sources of that oil, especially from countries that aren't, nationalized oil fields in Saudi Arabia or in Venezuela. I mean, Canada is one of the only places left that's a quote-unquote, friendly Western democracy where you can actually get access to large quantities of oil. But the big choke point is these pipelines. They can't get the oil to market without building them.
So, and what will it mean with increased tankers, and what's your fear of what will happen if this all comes to be?
Well, I guess it's twofold. I mean, the sort of most immediate top-of-mind threat for most people is an oil spill. And when it comes to, pipelines and tankers, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when there'll be a spill. And we've seen this in the last, 2 months. We've had 3 oil spills in Alberta alone. And of course, these things happen on a quite regular basis. In the last decade, there's been about 2,000 pipeline incidents, both natural gas and oil pipelines have ruptured. Some smaller than some bigger, but I mean, these things happen quite regularly. And many people are actually concerned that as we've been moving to this heavier crude, that the likelihood of incidents is actually potentially increasing because it's much more corrosive, heavier oil. Most immediate concern is an oil spill. I mean, if you had a spill in the Fraser River at the headwaters, I mean, it could affect, thousands of people, some of the most important habitat for salmon, and any number of other sort of related health concerns for people living downstream. Or a spill off the coast could be, extremely devastating to our ecosystems and our tourism economy, and you name it. Property values in British Columbia, to just as sort of a top of mind issue, but I mean the sort of longer term ecological issues would be quite devastating. But then even if there wasn't a spill, and I mean there will be at some point, I'm sure, smaller and bigger incidents, but even if there never was. We're still spilling all that carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and all that pollution into our bodies by burning the stuff. The Onion News Network, my favorite sort of funny news network, did this kind of mock news story where they said that there'd been a horrible incident where an oil tanker safely reached its final destination, and now that oil was all being spilled into the atmosphere. And this was right in the midst of the BP disaster, right when oil spills were really top of mind. And I thought that was a good sort of, I mean, as much as it was kind of a dark kind of comedy, it was an important reminder, I think, of how significant, what we're doing is right now. We're treating the atmosphere as if it's sort of a dump site that you can just put unlimited amounts of pollution into and there won't be any consequences. And I mean, the United Nations and the world's leading scientists have got a pretty overwhelming consensus telling us that, we need to do something about this. Whether it's about the pollution or about the climate implications. I mean, even just living in a city with automobiles is like smoking half a pack of cigarettes a day in a city like Vancouver.
And doesn't